number. Hi, everybody. Welcome to part 1 of 5 of the Getting Ready for Yom Tov series. I called it, what did I call it? I can and I will. I think that's what it is, something like that. It's a meditation. I know somebody, I guess he's on my mind because I might see him tomorrow. He's visiting from Johannesburg, successful business person. He told me that he wakes up every morning at 5 o'clock in the morning. I can't remember how long he does a meditation. I think it's 45 minutes. Then he goes and swims in his private swimming pool in his house, which is like a whole track. He built a special pool in his house. But before he goes on the track, he listens to a 30-minute motivational talk, the same one every single day, to get him ready for the day, whatever is going to face him. And he played it to me. And, you can imagine the sound of, I think it's Will Smith, you can do it, nothing can make you lose, nothing can make you fail, etc., etc., etc. So it's unbelievable when I met this person who showed me how serious he was about tackling each and every day. Today, we're going to try and do justice from a little bit of a Jewish perspective, what Jewish nuances can be added to trying to be ready for life. So let's begin. The way that this is going to work is I'm going to try do it with a little bit of multimedia. So I'm going to ask a question. Then if anybody wants to answer the question, you're more than welcome to. And then I'm going to mute everybody. Let me just do that, but just unmute yourselves if you want to speak, because I love hearing people speak, but it's completely up to you. And then we'll watch a video, and then we'll go into the next, and then I'll develop that video's idea, and then we'll go into the next one. So here's the first topic. Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur is the time of judgment. That's what the rabbis say. It's the time that the world is being judged by God. If I was going to give a softer word for judgment, I would replace it with the word reflection. It's where, just like we reflect on what we do in our businesses, in our relationships, in our lives,
doesn't really make a difference.
so to speak, as the same, by reflecting on his businesses and his relationships, which is with the creation, with us. So if I ask you the question, why do we human beings reflect? Why do we reflect? Maybe some of you will say, well, some of us don't reflect. I think that everybody will reflect on their lives at some point. Some will do it on a daily basis. Some might do it even on an hourly basis. Some people might do it their whole life, all the time. And some people might only hit their 40s and start introspecting and reflecting on who they are and what their lives are. Does anyone want to share why they think they reflect on their lives, or why human beings do in general? Does anyone have any ideas about that? So again, the question is, why do human beings reflect on their lives? So that's the question. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Maybe I'm going to share the screen, and then you can get an idea of what this person's saying, and then maybe you can think of something before I state what I'm going to say. Just to let you know, I'm going to be sharing this particular video is of someone that I actually know. Now, I don't know him well. I have heard him say this poem before live. He did win the American Slam Poetry Competition one year when I lived in the United States. And ever so often I would go downtown to San Diego, to the area where they would have these slam poetry competitions. And he was always there. So I have met him, and he became famous. I think the video I'm about to show you has probably been seen by lots of people, but I'm not 100% sure. But the poem is called My Honest Poem. So it's about his life. So let's see what Rudy has to say about us. Okay. let's just see. I just want to make sure that this media is working. I really do not like, I don't like Zoom on the computer. I'm sorry to say, it's easy on the iPad. Okay, can you guys see my screen? Okay, let's check it out.
I was born on July 27th. That makes me a Leo. I don't really know what that means. I'm 5'6", I weigh 145 pounds, I don't know how to swim, and I'm a sucker for a girl with a nice smile and clean sneakers. I'm still learning how to whisper. I'm often loud in places where I should be quiet. I'm often quiet in places where I should be loud. I was born feet first, and I've been backwards ever since. I like ginger ale. A lot. I've been told that I give really bad hugs. People say it feels like I'm trying to escape. Sometimes it's because I am. Secretly, I get really nervous every time someone gets close enough to hear me breathe. I have this odd fascination with things like sandcastles and ice sculptures. I assume it's because I usually find myself dedicating time to things that will only last a few moments. That's also why I tend to fall in love with women who will never love me back. I know it sounds crazy, but it's actually much easier than it seems. And to be honest, I think it's safer that way. See, relationships, they often remind me that I'm not afraid of heights or falling, but I'm scared of what's gonna happen the moment that my body hits the ground. I'm clumsy. Yesterday, I tripped over my self-esteem. I landed on my pride, and it shattered like an iPhone with a broken face. Now, I can't even tell who's trying to give me a compliment. I've never been in the military, but I have this purple heart. I got it from beating myself up over things I can't fix. I know this sounds weird, but sometimes I wonder what my bed sheets say about me when I'm not around. I wonder what the curtains would do if they found out about all the things I've done behind their backs. I've got a hamper that's overflowing with really, really loud mistakes and a graveyard in my closet. I'm afraid that if I let you see my skeletons, you'll grind my bones into powder and get high on my fault lines. Hi. My name is Rudy. I enjoy frozen yogurt, people watching, and laughing for absolutely no reason at all. But I don't allow myself to cry as often as I need to. I have solar power confidence. I have a battery-operated smile. My hobbies include editing my life story, hiding behind metaphors, and trying to convince my shadow that I'm someone worth following. I don't know much, but I do know this. I know heaven is full of music. I know God listens to my heartbeat on his iPod. It reminds him that we still got work to do. Thank you.
Okay, so that was Rudy Francesco, a winner of slam poetry in the United States. I mean, he's unbelievable. Sorry, one moment. I just have to pause this. Sorry about that. I'm just learning how to do this Zoom. Okay, so Rudy, it's a poem about his life, and it's quite a short poem. It's quite humorous. I love it how he says, I don't know a lot, but I know that God listens to our heartbeats on his iPod. That was the first time I heard anyone say God and an iPod in the same sentence. That was just when the iPod came out, the iPhones. Why is he reflecting on his life? Why do people reflect on their lives? I was watching a video which I chose not to share because it was a little bit sad, but it was from TEDx Talks about a boy who was in college, and he was sharing the death of his father and how helpful it was to become a grown-up. He said, I want to learn what old people do, because old people always reflect on life. And if I had had those skills from a young age of being able to reflect on my life, I would have been able to handle his parents' death much easier. I'll tell you why I think that human beings reflect. It's a little bit spiritual and it's a little bit conceptual, but just bear with me for a few moments. The first time the human being is mentioned in the Bible is in chapter 1, in order to contemplate what next. Okay, so in order to contemplate what next. So we reflect in order to know what's happening in the future. That's what Ruben suggests. Yes, I do think we reflect about the future. I also think a lot of the times, if not most of the time, we reflect about the past. And some people just get into this mode of just reflecting about the past onwards and onwards and onwards, and they can't let go of it. But I do think a lot of the reflection is about the future as well. The first time that the Torah mentions a human being, in chapter 1, verses 26, it mentions us in reference of a reflection. The words are, and God said, let us make man in our image. The next verse after that, and God created us in his image. In the image of God, in the reflection of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. Unbelievable. The first time that we hear of a human being. I mean, if you are a scholar of the Bible, the first aspect of a human being that we realize is the reflective attribute of us. Now, this is quite a unique reflection, because if you take heed to the rest of the creation, the way that the Torah describes the rest of the creation, it mentions with regards to the sea creatures and the animals and the birds, Totzei haaretz, yishretzu hamayim, let the water teem forth the animals, let the earth sprout the vegetation, let the earth bring forth the mammals. But when it comes to humans, God himself said, let us make man in our image. Meaning, maybe the animals, the plants, everything else is very much in the image of the earth itself. But when it comes to the human being, we're created in a higher image, so to speak, the image of God. Now, God cannot be separated into parts. So the image of God and God are the same thing. So if we are created in the image of God, it's almost as if we touch God to a point. I mean, it might be the furthest aspect of God because it still is the image of God. I've spoken to people who have professed to me that once you've been touched by God, there is no way to look at the world the same way ever again. No matter how hard you try, no matter what you try and do, if you've been touched by God and you know that that is the experience of a godly experience, there is no going back ever again. So I think one of the reasons, and the main reason why human beings reflect, is because we understand that we ourselves are a reflection of something else. And everything else we see is also a reflection of something else. Now, I'm not going to spend too much more time on this, because that was the spiritual idea of human beings understand the idea of reflecting, because we ourselves know that we are a reflection of something much higher than we could ever imagine. But one could even transform this into much more physical terms, that our words are just expressions of our feelings, and our feelings are just reflections of other things going on in our brain. And our brain is only just reflections of other things being determined by our souls, and so on and so forth, whichever order it is. So that's one aspect of why do human beings reflect. And when we do reflect, it might be that we're coming to terms with the fact of our essence, that we ourselves are just an image of an infinite source. That's the first message I'd like to share with you. Second question. Are there best times and worst times to reflect? Should we wait like this college student in Edinburgh on the TEDx talk that only woke up in his early 20s? Should we be teaching our children to reflect at young ages? Should we only be reflecting when we're older and looking back on our life because we should be too busy doing other stuff for the rest of those years? And not only that, but if one takes a 24-hour cycle, and maybe a 365-day cycle, are there some times of the year, of the day, of the hour that are better to reflect on than others? That's the question. Let's hear what the Indian gurus have to say about that. Share screen. Let's check it out.
sync with the many forces. If you become in rhythm with life, you will also wake up somewhere after 3 a.m.
At that time, if you sit up and do whatever process you have been initiated for, it will bear maximum fruit.
In the way the planet is spinning and what is happening, something very fundamental changes somewhere between 3:20 to 3:40. This is called Brahma Muhurtam.
This is relevant only up to 33 degrees latitude. Your system, human system, functions in a certain way. It is a possibility. So, there has been an awareness about making use of this possibility.
Your life is a product of many things that we call as the universe, many things that we call as existence. So we are a consequence of a certain phenomenal happening that we call as cosmos. We are not an individual existence. So when you get in sync, certain things will happen. You know, there's a cicadas in where we are in Tennessee, the US ashram, they wake up once in 17 years. Can you beat it? They know it is 17 years and they come awake and they breathe and they go back to sleep. They're keeping time once in 17 years. No alarm bell anywhere. Well, how is this? I'm saying they're in sync with nature. We have lost sync within nature and we think that is our nature. No. All the many ailments, many problems that human beings are suffering is simply because we have lost that awareness as to how to be in sync with the many forces which are making us who we are. So yoga is to bring that sync so that you are in rhythm with life. If you become in rhythm with life, you will also wake up somewhere just after 3 a.m. If you're conscious, suddenly a certain spark of aliveness will happen within you. Even if you're in deep sleep, you will come awake. This must happen to you. This means you're falling in sync with it. You're falling in sync with life.
So what should I do? Should I meditate? Should I do a kriya? Doesn't matter what. You must do a process for which you have been initiated for. Because initiation means you were not just taught a practice, it was introduced into your system, it was implanted in your system. So whatever, if there is a life seed within you, if you're awake at Brahma Muhurtam and sit for whatever that practice is, it bears maximum fruit because of the way the planet is behaving in relation to your system. If you become aware in a certain way, a certain level of awareness is achieved within you, you will see, you will simply know when the time is. If you go to bed at the right time, you don't have to look at your watch. You will always know when it is 3:40, because the body will behave in a different way. At that time, if you sit up and do whatever process you have been initiated for, not what you picked up from a book, it will bear maximum fruit. The seed will get the necessary support at that time for it to sprout or spurt up more rapidly than at other times. This is only for the initiated. If you are not initiated, you are a book yogi. Then 3:40, 6:40, 7:40, not so much of a difference. Sandhya kalas are more important for such people. Sandhya means…
So that was Sadhguru, who's one of the leading influencers in the world on Facebook and YouTube in terms of New Age thinking. You often find him talking to college children at Harvard, Oxford University, all the different universities around the world. I'm not sure if he's been to South Africa, but he's been to Israel a few times. Quite interesting for him to see him talk to rabbis like Rabbi Wolpe and others in the United States. What was the question we asked? Are there best times to practice reflection and self-development? So in the Indian tradition, they have a tradition that if you're within a certain latitude, as his name's Sadhguru, if you are in a certain latitude of the world from the equator, 33 degrees up or down, he has this tradition that it's at 3:40 a.m. in the morning. I believe that King David also had some type of tradition that in the early hours of the morning, there was a certain energy and he did something at that hour. I don't want to go so much into on a daily basis what you should be doing at what hour, but there's no doubt that the consensus of the rabbis of the Talmud is that the months and the weeks that we're in now is the month of repentance. That Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are the times of the year that you have the most access to reflect on your life. I was listening to a rabbi from Tzfat who was giving the analogy, it's a 90% off discount. That for the rest of the year, you have to work really hard on accessing your powers of forgiveness and being able to, introspect with what you should do or what you shouldn't have done. But you get 90% off at this time. He was obviously just using that as an analogy. I think in concept, the idea behind there being specific times for doing certain things like introspection and reflection is because there wasn't a particular time and it was just do it whenever you feel, a lot of people would just never do it. And therefore, one should do it at least on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. The rabbis might not have been saying you should do it only on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, but they're saying at the least. One could take it a step further, which is what the Mishnah does in Rosh Hashanah 16a. The Talmud says that there's various energies reflected throughout the seasons. For example, at the time of Passover, the world is judged for the grain for the upcoming year. At the time of Shavuot, the world is judged for the fruit for the upcoming year. At the time of Sukkot, the world is judged for the water that's going to come into the world for the upcoming year. And on Rosh Hashanah, all the creatures pass before God like sheep, kavakarat roe edro, the words that from the famous Unatane Tokef prayer that we say on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. So the Mishnah seems to suggest that there are times, just like Sadhguru was saying on a daily basis, there's times of introspection and meditation and reflection that you can achieve the most. The rabbis of the Talmud were assuming that there's times of the year that are conducive to certain blessings and certain energy systems that one can tap into. I should also end off by saying that there are two rabbis who argue on that Mishnah in the Talmud. Rabbi Yossi is unhappy with the idea that there are certain times that are judged, like on Pesach, the world is judged for grain. He says every day God is reflecting on the human being. Comes along Rabbi Natan, says, no, it's not every day that God reflects on us. It's all day. Every moment, God is involved in reflecting on what we are doing or not doing. So that idea of, are there certain times specifically with energy systems that can help us? Well, you can take the Sadhguru Mishnah approach, that yes, there are certain times. You can take the Rav Natan approach, that no, every time is a possibility of the equal and introspection and retrospection. But whatever the case is, at least do it on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur if you aren't going to do it for the rest of the year, because we already said that if one reflects, the whole magic and secret of reflection is realizing that we ourselves are a reflection of Hashem. Okay, now only 2 more questions to go. Question number 3. When we are reflecting on our lives, so we look back at our year, let's say the year of Corona. What should we be feeling? Should we be feeling confident we handled it correctly? Should we be feeling guilty? Should we be feeling guilty for only our own little worlds? Should we be feeling guilty for the world at large? This is what this next video invites us to think about. You may have seen this video. It did go viral during
20 minutes before sunrise.
Oh.
है सुना ये पूरी धरती तू चलाता है, मेरी भी सुन ले अरज मुझे घर बुलाता है। भगवान है कहाँ रे तू, है खुदा है कहाँ रे तू। है सुना तू भटके मन को राह दिखाता है, मैं भी खोया हूँ मुझे घर बुलाता है। भगवान है कहाँ रे तू, है खुदा है कहाँ रे तू। या नमाज़ें पढ़ूं, अरदासें करूं दिन रात, ना तू मंदिर मिले ना तू गिरजे मिले, तुझे ढूंढे थके मेरे नैन, तुझे ढूंढे थके मेरे नैन, तुझे ढूंढे थके मेरे नैन। जो भी रस्में हैं वो सारी मैं निभाता हूँ, इन करोड़ों की तरह मैं सर झुकाता हूँ। भगवान है कहाँ रे तू, है खुदा है कहाँ रे तू।
Saddest cartoon I've ever seen. I mean, nice music, sad visuals. I don't think that was the original music. I think someone else made the video and that just added the music to it, but I'm not sure. Question we asked, when one is reflecting, should we feel confident? Should we feel guilty? This is a tough one. When you watch that video, one realizes the world that we're in. Now, unfortunately, that video doesn't show all the wonderful things as well that's going on in the world. So it's easy to point fingers. It's very easy to point fingers at the world and say that it's bad and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we often forget the good things that are there as well. We see that from the media. If you open up the media pages on the news, the things that are going to sell are murders and wars and things like that. Whereas the general things, the day-to-day things which make people smile, it's much harder to turn that into a story. Once asked Rabbi Lichtenstein, Alav Shalom, Rabbi Aaron Lichtenstein, he was the Rosh Hashiva of Gush Etzion. When he was visiting my yeshiva in Jerusalem, he would come twice a week. So I would go listen to him. And the question I asked him is about Jewish guilt. Is it a good thing that Jewish people have guilt? Where does this idea come from? He answered me for 45 minutes, but I'm not going to talk for 45 minutes. I'm just going to give a 1-minute synopsis of what he said. Guilt, most people think that guilt is a bad thing. When we conjure up in our minds the word guilt, it's normally very negative. But guilt is a big positive. It tells us that we've done something wrong and it's a call to action. If we didn't have guilt, that would be the problem. When we look at our lives and our families and when we fight with people, especially our husbands and wives and children and parents and whatever else it is, the worst is when someone does something wrong and they don't feel guilty. That's the worst. It's much better when someone does something and they do feel guilty, even though you feel bad for somebody that you love, that they're feeling pain, but at least it tells them something, what they need to do. So Rabbi Lichtenstein wanted to say that, yes, guilt is something that is very, very positive at the core. It's a red flag in our souls telling us we need to come back to where we are meant to go. At the same time, don't hold on to guilt. Once you've dealt with it, let it go. And if you just hold on to that guilt over and over, how many of us at our certain times in our lives have just had that repeat thought in our brains every day, every hour about something that we've done or something that someone's done to us, just keeps repeating. I'm sure there's some people who have that for decades. And that's bad. That's where guilt turns from a positive into a negative. But guilt is not a bad thing. So should we feel guilty? Rabbi Lichtenstein would argue, yes, we should. We should feel guilty when we've done something wrong, but then deal with it and let go of it and move on. On the contrary of that, should we feel confident? So let's assume that we feel that we're great human beings and that we're really good to our family and friends and community and world and whatever else it is. I don't think it's a bad thing to feel good about yourself. Self-esteem is very, very important. At the same time, when you look at a video like we just saw, and we realize that we're just a product of a huge, massive world, we're so blind to so many things that we're doing wrong as human beings on a daily basis. It's not our fault. We were just born into a system that does these things, but that itself should make us a little bit less confident than we would normally go into a meeting with our Creator, because we've got a lot of blind spots as well. So that's where I think that a healthy balance going into a period of introspection and retrospection and inspection and reflection is to have these two things in mind, that guilt is positive, but not if it continues too far. So as long as you deal with it, move on. At the same time, confidence is good, but don't take it too far either, because you've got a lot of blind spots. And even if you yourself don't have them, the world at large does, and you're influenced by that as well. Even when you buy a chocolate or something from the grocery store, we have no idea what those companies are doing to this universe. I know, when I was overseas, I don't want to mention the company's names because I don't really know what they've done. But when I was overseas, certain people were telling me about, don't eat this chocolate because they're doing this in the Amazon, and don't do this because of this, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It gets very difficult to live. But yes, we are in charge of this planet. We were commanded to take care of it and protect it. So yeah, we do have a lot of blind spots. So in terms of introspection and reflection about feeling guilty or overconfident, that balance in between is quite a hard one to do, but it's something that's necessary. Lastly, the last video of the day will end off with Rabbi Aaron from Jerusalem and the Israelite Institute. Quite a simple video. I like Rabbi Aaron because he does say things in a very simplistic way, but it's not at all simple what he's saying. It's actually the most infinite thing about. He's talking about our souls. And let's see what Rabbi Aaron has to say when we ask, what is the limit? What is the human potential capable of when we are doing inspection and referrals of our life? What should we be looking to do? Okie dokie. Share screen.
Hi, I'm Rabbi David Aaron, the author of Seeing God, and I'm here to share with you more secrets to love, spiritual growth, and personal power. The question that I constantly get is, what really gives a person a true sense of value in the world? When you think about it, we are much less than 1/5 billionth of a speck of dust in the universe. And that's really quite shocking when you think and you realize that in this huge world, there are about 5 billion people living here. So how does a person really feel value? And yet, even though everything from without tells us we're nothing, what is it within us that tells us we're something? And what's in us that tells us we're something is the soul. The ancients teach us that we are souls. And what is a soul? A soul is really a part of God. Now, of course, God doesn't break up into parts. But if God were the sun, we would be rays of his light. And yet, it's so amazing. If you get in touch with yourself, you realize that there's something about godly greatness that is looking to become manifest in the world through you. A lot of people think that somehow spirituality is all about taking the material and elevating it and making it more spiritual, and that's what our life is about. But the ancients teach us that really our goal is to take the spiritual and materialize it. We are here because there's something about divine quality, something about God's power and value that is seeking to become concrete and present in this world through you. And that's the meaning of a service-driven life. The secret to real happiness is to find your service. What is it about God that you have come into this world to bring in this world? Justice is a very abstract value. Love is a very abstract power. But when you take that power and you turn it into a hug, you turn it into a smile, then what you've actually done is brought, so to speak, the presence of God in the world. And the more you bring the presence of God in the world, the greater your life feels gifted. So I thank you for listening, and I look forward, as always, to hearing your comments, and I wish you much success in your journey.
So that's Rabbi Aaron, who I've also met, and he spoke about two themes over there that I remember. Sorry, I just have to stop the video again. Oh, sorry, that's coming up still. So Rabbi Aaron is talking about two themes. The first one is realizing that we're souls. Now, I like his analogy. I don't love it, that if God is the sun, we're the rays of light. I think we're the rocks that the rays of sun, trillions of light years away, are finally reaching. That to me, the rays of the sun are far too strong to consider us being that, because that's much more related to God. But I understand what he's trying to say, is that we are connected to God because we are made from God. We are in the image of God. When I was in Colombia traveling, I once met a Japanese man. We were on top of a mountain in Minca, which is on the Caribbean shores. And we got into a conversation. We got on very, very well. He was one of the most interesting travelers I met. He was the oldest traveler I met. When I talk about a traveler, I'm talking about a backpacker. I think he was 78 years old. And he had been traveling for 12 years, not nonstop, but 12 years since his wife passed away. Every year he goes for 3 months somewhere around the world as a backpacker. So this was his time backpacking in Colombia. And we spoke about everything, and somehow, I don't remember when, but I told him that I'm Jewish. I might have told him that I'm a rabbi. I don't remember how the conversation went. But when he heard that I'm Jewish, he could not stop talking about my upbringing. And the major reason why is because he was reading a book about Albert Einstein. And it was about Einstein's theory of relativity. One of them equals mc squared. And he was saying, how can a 24-year-old be thinking about such great and grand ideas? He says, from his culture, no 20-year-old would be even close to thinking about such profound and conceptual ideas. What is it about the Jewish culture, history, faith, religion, whatever it is, that helped Einstein even think of such things? Now, if I had to answer that question now, I think our people have been thinking about infinity since we received the Torah, and probably before. Because even E equals mc squared, which is an unbelievable idea that this Japanese person was meditating on during his whole travels, about how could it be that everything that has mass has unlimited energy? Because E is energy equals M is mass, but next to that mass is c squared, a number that is so beyond anything that we can imagine. So in the physical universe, there is unlimited, I don't want to call it unlimited infinite, because relative to spirituality is very finite. But in the physical universe, the energy that exists in everything, in every molecule that has mass, in every human being, in every solar system, and just going on, whichever direction you want to go, macro or micro, is so huge that we can't get our heads around that. Now imagine if E equals mc squared exists in the physical realm. Imagine how big those rays of light of God are. Imagine how much more unlimited God is than our universe seems to us. And that's why when we think about this time of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, where God is reflecting on us, and because God is reflecting on us, we reflect on God. And not only that, but we reflect on our position within this whole system that we found ourselves. We can take it at one level of reflecting on the physical, unlimited E equals mc squared, which is what Einstein proved to us and what this Japanese person just couldn't get his head around. Or we could even go one step further than that, which is connecting to the idea that there is unlimited potential in us, not just in our physical bodies, but in our abilities to become like God. And I'll leave you with one thought, and then we'll go to a final video, which I think portrays this thinking in a very physical way, but it's the idea that I'm trying to get at, that we all have unlimited potential, is we say in the Modeh Ani prayer every morning. If you say this prayer, I teach a lot of bar and bat mitzvah students around the world, and I try to get them in the habit of, they don't have to say the Modeh Ani prayer itself, but I say at least for a month, when you wake up in the morning, just say thank you to yourself. See if that makes your life any better than when you didn't do it. You can just think it in your mind. Thank you, the first thing that you say when you wake up. So that's really what the Modeh Ani prayer is about. But the last three words of the Modeh Ani change your perspective of why you're grateful. Because it says, B'chemla rabba emunatecha. Thank you, God, Modeh Ani lefanecha shechazarta bi nishmati, for returning my soul. B'chemla rabba emunatecha. With a lot of compassion is your faithfulness, emunatecha. And the commentaries on the Siddur say, it's not that we're saying that we have a lot of faith in God, and we're kind of patting ourselves on the back and saying, with a lot of compassion, we have faith in God. No, with a lot of compassion is your faithfulness in us. The first thing we proclaim in the morning is that God has faith in us. God knows our unlimited potential that we have, both on a physical level, both on a spiritual level, because we are a part of God. So that's an unbelievable theory. When anyone ever feels down or is battling with self-esteem or depression, one should remember, that God has faith in us, otherwise we wouldn't have woken up that morning. And not only that, but God's faith in us might even imply that God's willing to give us a little bit of a push to help us in whichever area of life we need to go to. So I would end off by saying that God has faith in us. Not only are we capable, the series is called I Can and I Will. Not only are we able and capable, but chances are God is even there to help us along the way, to introspect, retrospect, inspect, and obviously reflect on our lives and what meanings we're trying to get from it. I'll leave you with a short video, which is a nice little story, and we'll continue next week with some more down-to-earth, practical ideas of how to reflect on our lives. Today was understanding where you start the process of reflection. Again, we asked 4 questions. First one, why do humans reflect? We reflect because we are a reflection of Hashem. And therefore, to know your essence by nature is to reflect. Number 2, should we reflect often? Are there certain times of the year and the day to do it? Maybe yes, maybe no. It depends on how you read that Mishnah. Depends how much you understand Sadhguru and other people who say such things. But our tradition says that this is the best time of the year to introspect and reflect on your life, because you'll get the biggest push in helping you see your blind spots. Question number 3, should we feel super guilty or should we feel super confident in facing our Creator when we are reflecting on our lives? On the one hand, it's a healthy thing to feel guilty, but don't feel too guilty. Once you've fixed whatever it is, don't hold on to it. At the same time, it's good to feel confident, but don't feel too confident, because you don't even know of the blind spots that you have lived in a world with a lot of blind spots. And lastly, what is our human potential? If we really knew, if we really had meditated on the E=mc² idea like this Japanese tourist, we would understand that anything physical has infinite energy. And if you take that one step further, anything spiritual has even more energy. So nothing can stop you. Nothing can stop us. We could create universes and destroy universes in the same day if we really wanted to. Everything is in our power. We already see the power that the human being is capable of. And can you imagine what we will see in 1,000 years' time, what human beings are able to do? So we have unlimited potential. Never let anything stop us from achieving what we really want to achieve. Thank you for being here. Next week, we'll go into something else, and enjoy this last video.
One day a son goes to his father and says, "Father, what is the value of my life?" And the father gives him the stone and says, "Son, if you want to know the value of your life, take this stone and go to the market. And if anyone asks the price, don't say a word and raise up 2 fingers." So the boy does as his father says and goes to the market. He wanders around, and suddenly an old woman approaches him and says, "How much is this stone?" And the boy doesn't say a word, just raises up 2 fingers. And the woman says, $2? I'll take it. The son is surprised and runs back to his father. He says, "Father, there was an old woman at the market. She wanted to give me $2 for the stone." And the father says, "Son, the next place I want you to go is to the museum. And if anyone asks the price, don't say a word and raise up 2 fingers." So the son takes the stone and goes to the museum. After about 20 minutes, there is a middle-aged man in a suit who approaches the boy. He says, "Sir, how much is this stone?" The boy doesn't say a word and raises up 2 fingers. And the man says, $200? I'll take it. The boy is surprised and runs home to his father. Father, a man in the museum wanted to buy the stone for $200. Okay, son. The last place I want you to take the stone is a precious stone store. Walk inside with the stone, and if anyone asks the price, don't say a word, just raise up 2 fingers. So the son runs off into the precious stone store. After finding it, he walks inside and there is an old man at the counter. And as the old man sees the stone, he jumps up and screams, "Oh my God, you have the stone I've been looking for my whole life. What do you want for it? How much is it?" The boy doesn't say a word and raises up 2 fingers. And the old man says, $200,000? I'll take it. The boy can't believe it. He jumps up and runs to his father. He says, Father, the old man at the precious stone store wanted to give me $200,000 for the stone." You see, son? You understand now the value of your life? Life is all about where you place yourself. You can decide if you want to be a $2 stone or a $200,000 stone. There are some people who love you and for whom you're everything. And some people will just use you as a commodity, and for them, you will be worth nothing. So it is upon you, my son, to decide the value of your life. Thanks for watching.
Thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that story. Stay healthy. Good luck with your teshuvah process. And in God we trust. Thank you, everybody.